Councillor Mark Sutherland, who just happens to have his birthday today.
Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to say Yama de Gomeroi, Wallabagniani, Winnungalawa, Abu Murray, Maramara, Naledam, Lilia Yanbali, Garamarius Gangul, Gomeroi, Yamranginda, Winnalanginda, Winnungalawa. And that's the language spoken by our families and our communities here in Tamworth and across the northwest, making sure that we acknowledge the country that we're on, the land of the Gomeroi people, and that we pay respects to elders both past and present, who have cared and still care for this country. And Mr. Mayor, I'll just add on to that, that connection to country has been maintained for thousands of years as factual knowledge. Passed down through oral history, passed down through stories, reaffirmed by science and confirmed by legislation in the native title. Not a belief, it's a fact that Aboriginal people have lived on this country and continue to live on this country. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillors, I'd ask you all to stand for the meeting prayer, and all those in the audience, if they would please stand. Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee and vouchsafe our blessing upon this council. Direct and prosper our deliberations to the advancement of the glory and true welfare of the people of the Regional Council and Australia. Amen.
Amen.
Councillors, we'll move on to the order of business for tonight, and I'll call for apologies and leave of absence. We have no apologies, as there is, we are all here tonight, and I'll call on the General Manager. We do have one request for a leave of absence.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, the Mayor has put in a formal request for a leave of absence for the council meeting for the 28th of March, at which time it will be out of the city on personal business.
We need someone to accept that.
Move. Yep.
I'll move that. Does somebody, Councillor Southwell, all those in favour?
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillor, we'll move on to item 2 on the order of business, community consultation. I'm unaware of anybody being registered for community consultation, so therefore we'll move on to item 3, minutes from the previous meeting. Could I have somebody move? Councillor Coates, seconded Councillor Mears. Would you like to have any questions on that, Councillor Coates?
No, thank you.
Any other issues in relation to the minutes? Anybody wish to speak to them, ask questions, not support the minutes as written? All those in favour say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those against, carried. We'll move on to item 4, disclosure of interest. Are there any disclosures of interest tonight? Councillor Southwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to disclose that I've got a conflict of interest for item 9.2. In terms of the Payalamore Recreation Reserve Committee, my uncle is the chair of that committee. It is non-pecuniary and less than significant, but I will leave the room for that one, given that we are going to be potentially approving some funding to that committee. So, thank you.
Further conflicts or disclosures of interest? There being none, we'll move on to Merrill Minute. There is no Merrill Minute. Item 6, notice of motion. There is no notices of motion. We'll move on to item 7, environmental and planning. And we'll go to 7.1. Have somebody please move 7.1. Move Councillor Southwell, seconded Councillor Coates. Councillor Southwell, would you like to speak to that?
No, thanks.
Would anybody like to speak against that recommendation? Any further comments on that recommendation? There being no comments, I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillors, will move there on to 8, infrastructure and services, and 8.1, Tamworth Women's International Freeway. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Move Councillor Mears, seconded Councillor Berg. Councillor Mears, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just through you, I'd just like to commend the council for its decision. It's incredibly important that we bring sport and visitors to the region. And I understand, as I heard you speaking on the radio this morning, this involves 4 different sports, separate issues, but to have such a wealth of sporting teams and their families coming to Tamworth's got to be a benefit to us, our businesses and council as a whole.
Any councillor wish to speak against that recommendation? Any other councillors wish to make comment? Councillor Baird.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Totally support the recommendation, always have on these major items. If you have a look at the benefit in excess of $1 million it'll bring into the community. But the issue is that we get these all the time and they come up during the year and we have to find the funds for it. And these are basically unfunded at the time. So if we do approve this, which I'm hopefully, it's just almost a no-brainer to do it because of the benefit to the broader community. Something else has to go by the wayside to be able to do this. And I know we've got another one later on in the business paper, which I support that as well, because the benefits to our broader community is significant. But we just need to work out a way in the future of funding this, because these things come up all the time. They're impromptu, but they are benefit. If we could have some sort of a plan to get the funds in, whether it's a grant funding or something like that, because it's so important to the city to have these sporting events. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Further comments, councillors? Councillor Bird, then Councillor Southwell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just briefly to support my fellow councillors, it's such a growing sport, women's rugby. The uptake and the enjoyment and the pleasure that the fair agenda is now getting out of this sport that was really only allocated to the male gender for many, many years is quite incredible. And it's consistent with our policy and what we've done with other requests from sporting organisations asking for fee waiver and small commitments. So very happy to support it, and I hope that the event is an incredible success.
Further comments, Councillor Southwell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As it's already been highlighted, I think the economic benefits of this is fantastic for our region. Also, as has been highlighted, the female sport participation aspect is very, very good. Rugby is a very, very prominent sport in Australia, so to showcase females in this sport is fantastic. I guess the controversial part of this is the $27,000 that we are funding to, which is part of the Growth and Prosperity Events Reserve budget. However, as it's been highlighted in the report, this will showcase Tamworth to a national audience. So this puts our sporting fields and discussion around Tamworth to the national audience, and that I think is actually fairly good in terms of value for money. So it might seem expensive, but when you look at the dollar benefit that gets, that huge audience throughout the nation, I think it's well worth it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Southwell. Further comments? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carry. Councillors, we'll move on to item 8.2, the Tamworth Regional Traffic Committee. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Move Councillor Betts, seconded Councillor Coates. Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Betts?
No, Mr Mayor.
Anybody wish to speak against that recommendation? Any questions on that recommendation? Yes, Councillor Rodder.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a question, and I don't know whether I missed it in the body of the report or the annexures. The point V, approve installation of line marking and signage at the intersection of Avro Street and Plain Street to Minda as part of the proposed black spot upgrade, including the removal of 23 parking spaces. Could I have an explanation about the removal of that many parking spaces? And just in relation to item 7, point 7, approve pavement widening and installation of new curb and guttering system with associated curb ramp signage and line marking at the intersection of Gunnar Road and Evans Street, Westdale. I certainly fully support that. And certainly look forward to the day that the people of Evans Street that don't have curb and guttering will have curb and guttering.
Thanks, Councillor Rodder. I might also add to your question, Councillor Rodder, and ask the Director there at the moment in relation to that 5. Was there consultation about removing those parking spaces from outside those businesses in relation to that black spot upgrade? Through you, Mr. General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor. I don't know the answer to the question about the consultation. I believe there would have been, but I don't really know. There generally is with the Traffic Committee. Councillor Betts might know that. In relation to the loss of car parking spaces, I think it's the turning path of the vehicle. So when they allow for B doubles, etc., to turn, and make that manoeuvre, there's going to be loss of car spaces, and that's the reason they're here.
Councillor Betts, did you want to make a comment on that?
Briefly, Mr Mayor, the Director of whatever he is, Services, Roads and Potholes. It's right, the turning path of the B doubles and the larger vehicles required a significant amount of room, which required those car parks to be removed, and has a crash history, a significant crash history, according to the Transport New South Wales data. So that was one of the considerations why it happened there. As for the consultation, there was some consultation. How broad it was, I don't know, but our staff did do some consultation.
Yeah, the question has been raised as to what consultation took place. Apparently the corner where a lot of that activity will take place, in terms of taking some car parks, has asked me today what had been said, because they haven't been told about it, and they've just found out in the paper today. So that concerns me a little. Councillors, further comments? Councillor Cates.
Through you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to make a comment in regards to the parking spaces in Burke Street. Being a member of the Disability Access Working Group, the parking spaces that we can get in anywhere in the CBD for disabled parking are always welcome. Thank you.
I have one question. It says 2 disabled car parking spaces, and I understand the committee recommended, that asked for that, recommended only 1. Can somebody give me a response to that, please?
Certainly, Mr Mayor. The reason for that was that, yes, the committee asked for 1, but when they did the calculations for the requirement for the car park, it will only result in the loss of 1 normal car park, but because of where they can move it, they actually get 2 for the price of 1. So it's a benefit. The fact that we're only losing 1 car park, which was originally thought of doing, you're now getting 2 for the price of 1.
Further comments, councillors? Councillor Tiggle.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As the chair of the Disability Access Group for many years, this is pleasing to see more spots. However, we've still got a problem in the bottom part of Burke Street, because whilst there may be a park, we can't get curb access because of engineering constraints. So it is really something we have to always consider when we're doing roadworks and building new roads, because it is a problem. Because it's not only wheelchairs. I've seen people in Peel Street, it's a problem too. Like there's a disability park and they're generally near traffic lights or something. The person's got to get out, walk around the front of the car on the main road, in the busy road, and then use the crossing. It's because there is a spot in Peel Street where there's some curb access, but it is an engineering problem, and our senior engineers have looked at it over and over again. So it's something that really has to be considered for any future works. I also couldn't help but note the poor occupancy of Burke Street since the installation of parking meters, 58% in...
Councillor Tiggle, is that in this report?
Sorry, there you go. Resist that one.
Councillors, further comments? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Councillors, we'll move on to the next item, the 8.3, that's the Combined New South Wales Primary Sports Association fee waiver request. Could I have a mover and a seconder for that? Move Councillor Cates, seconded Councillor Southwell. Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Cates?
Just to make a brief, brief mention that being able to host 4 state championships in Tamworth over 1 week is going to bring a lot of benefits. And as the report says, more than $700,000 in economic benefits. But as was mentioned with the other sporting event as well, it really gives us an opportunity to showcase the fantastic facilities we've got at the Dome and at the hockey centre, because they are incredible spaces, and I think it's great to be able to welcome people here for these sorts of championships. Thank you.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Anyone wish to make comment on that recommendation? Well, I do. Councillor Rodder?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just following on from Councillor Coates, yes, 100% support this. It is a big week. I know it's a big week. I've been out there during that, when that event was on last year. And the good thing about hockey, not only are they will probably provide that discount separately as mentioned in the body of the report, but the good thing about hockey is at the end of that week, they will stage the 40-45s, men's 40-45s, which will be a big weekend as well. So all round, the economic benefit will be certainly magnified from having that event at the end of that week.
Further comments, councillors? Councillor Burke, did you have a
No, Mr Mayor.
further comments? Councillor Southwell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just quickly, I concur with my fellow councillors on this one. I think it's great. I just want to highlight that something that's in this report, which is that we held this event, which is a very unique event, in 2022, and because of the success of it, it's we've been selected again to host it in 2023, which is great. Obviously, it promotes us as a region and showcases our amazing sporting facilities. But obviously it really boosts our economy and also supports our local businesses. So it's just very, very good to see, and looking forward to seeing lots of sporting people in town during that time. Thanks.
Further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, I think it shouldn't go without noting that the suitability of the high quality sporting venues were one of the reasons that we got this back, and I think that's very important for everyone in this community to understand. We do work very hard with our sporting bodies to get that right. Councillors, I put the recommendation. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. 8.4, shall I have a mover, please? Councillor Betts, seconded Councillor Southwell. Councillor Betts, you wish to speak to that?
Yes, Mr Mayor. Excellent report, which is always the case. In particular, I'd really like to highlight one particular issue is that, first of all, that the effort that the community has made to sustain our water capacity over the years. As I said, I do this every time, since 1996, the potable water use has not risen throughout that time. Now, all the measures that have been put in place, which is reflected in this report, have resulted in the fact that we have got a sustainable water supply. But the thing I'd like to mention is that right now in that report it says that both Chaffey and Dungowan Dam are nearing 100% as we speak now. And the fact is the water sharing plan needs to be looked at to make sure that that is sustainable, because back in 2016 that Chaffey Dam was was upgraded to 104 gigalitres, and it was filled within a very short space of time. Within 3 years, it was down to 11%. Now, something's wrong with that water sharing plan when you go from a 62 gigalitre dam to a 104 gigalitre dam, and it's all gone in 3.5 years. We've got it full now. Both Dungowan Dam and Chaffey are full. So the water sharing plan needs to ensure that that projection is maintained through the next drought. And I think if you look at all the weather indicators, we could be heading for a dry time. So it's absolutely imperative that the New South Wales DPI make sure that that water sharing plan reflects that usage. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation and that report? No. Further comments on that report and recommendation? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. We'll move on to item 8.5, CSIRO wastewater treatment trial outcomes. I'll move in a second. I'll move Councillor Rodder, seconded Councillor Mears. Councillor Rodder, you wish to speak to that?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is fantastic. Outcomes, we know that it was successful, and I look forward to the day that that infrastructure is rolled out, not only in our city for the benefit of our three, particularly our three main abattoirs and obviously biggest water users, but also obviously into the future to other smaller communities around our state. And I'm heartened by the fact that both sides of the political spectrum support water purification, and I'm sure that we will see that be supported in the near future.
Councillors, before there's any more comments made, I'll ask anyone who wants to speak against the recommendation. I might ask our Director Bruce to probably just explain what this means, because we're talking about a trial here as opposed to what Councillor Orr referred to as a purification scheme.
Mr Mayor, so councillors, so perhaps I can explain it this way. There is existing technology out there, reverse osmosis technology, which is obviously what you use for salinity, for wind plants, and that's the type of technology that we were looking to use at the purified water treatment facility. And then the CSIRO approached us to be involved in this trial. The trial has been a success, but the report indicates that further work needs to be done, and that will take a number of years. So whilst that further work, if it's undertaken, is being undertaken, we will push ahead with the purified water treatment facility using the more traditional reverse osmosis technology. It doesn't mean that we have to wait for the results of the more extensive trial before we can build a water purification facility.
Councillors, any further comments? Councillor Betts?
Just briefly, very excited. Results of the trial proved that it's certainly a viable process to extend our water capacity and security. I did notice in the report that under the current program and the trial indicated that it's not feasible at this stage on a large scale commercial entity yet, but the process works, and I think over a period of time that technology will become available on a large scale and be economically viable. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. We'll move on to item 8.6, Dungangowan catchment. Councillor Betts. Second, Councillor Southall. You want to speak to that, Councillor Betts? Sorry, I thought you put your hand up.
No, I was pressing this.
Councillors, I'll
That's it, I did, I did.
Councillor Betts, wish to speak to that?
No, Mr Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Further comments on the recommendation? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Councillors, we'll now move into 9, which is governance and strategy, and 9.1. Could I have somebody move 9.1? Moved Councillor Coates, seconded Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Coates, do you wish to speak to that?
Just very briefly, thank you, Mr Mayor. I guess my comment is in regards to the Tamworth Regional Astronomy Centre, and when we actually have a look at that, we've noticed that the membership is growing, and I think that's really, really great for that particular facility because it's got enormous potential for our region. I think it's so underrated and undertapped, and I will make a comment that I've spoken to quite a number of people in Tamworth who don't even know it's there still. So I think it's got huge potential into the future. I also like the idea of the open day for Victoria Park Precinct because that's going to actually help us to highlight to people that we don't just have the Astronomy Centre, but we've got the Botanic Gardens and the Miniature Railway and the men's shed and that up there. So I think both of those things. Also, in terms of just those general reports, our 355 committees do a great job, and I think we just need to acknowledge the ongoing work that they do with those other facilities that we have. So thank you.
Council, does anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Anyone wish to add further comment? Councillor Southall.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'd just like to add on to what Councillor Coates has said. The 355s do an amazing job, and as does Kay Burns and Jodie Archer, our staff in those areas. So well done to everyone involved with those committees. In regards to item 3, I'm not sure how I was nominated for that particular committee. However, I'm most pleased that I have been nominated for the Tamworth Australia Day Working Group. I did attend one meeting and it was a little bit small on numbers, so I think it'll be good to have a few more attend, and they look like, all of those people look like they'll be an asset to that committee. Thanks.
Thank you. Further comments, councillors? There being no further comment, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Councillors, we'll move on to item 9.2. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Move,
Sorry.
councillor.
Sorry, I'm just going to leave the room for that one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Betts moves. Councillor Sutherland seconded. Councillor Betts, you wish to speak to that?
No.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Further comments on that recommendation? Councillor Rodder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to say that they're all worthy recipients of that cash. Councillor Coates and Mears and myself did attend the opening of the Wiyabonga Recreation Reserve shed, and noted on the day that we were there was a bit soft underfoot, and that access to the and pathway will be well received, and then I'm sure we'll be invited back to check it out. But all of those projects will be good for those smaller communities, and it's great to see those smaller communities and the work that they do to look after those assets for us.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? No? Further comment on that recommendation? Councillor Burke.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I just know that also there's unallocated funds that have been budgeted that aren't spent, so that you'd certainly like to encourage. There are other community assets out there in these regional areas that do need more attention, and it'd be great for those committees and people who frequent and know what particular improvements need to be made, that they make use of the unallocated funds, and I'd encourage that to be done.
Further comments, councillors? There are no further comments. I'll move the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. We can get... Councillors, item 9.3, could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Move Councillor Coates, seconded Councillor Mears. Do you wish to speak to that, Councillor Coates?
Just very briefly, and just to comment that it's good to see that our water and sewer funds are nice and healthy still. And I guess it's, in terms of the general fund, I notice in the report that the comment was that because of the downward direction that that's heading, that we're going to have to seek more funds or do less work or do things differently to get as much as we can out of the dollar that we have. And I think that's probably a reflection on what's going on at the moment with the economy in general and the backlash of what's happened after COVID, etc. So it's going to be trying to come up with innovative ways to make sure we spend our money properly.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Councillors, we'll move to item 9.4. Could I have a move and a seconder, please? Move Councillor Southwell, seconded Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Southwell, wish to speak to that?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to say that I guess with the interest rates increasing, it will be good for our investments. So that's one of the bonuses, I guess, as we move forward. So after having a lot of, I guess, a few years of some lower interest rates, that will be good for our investments. Thanks.
Councillors, anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Further comments on that recommendation? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillors, we'll move on to item 9.5, annual operational plan, moved by councillor Betts, seconded by councillor Tickle. Councillor Betts, you wish to speak to that?
Yeah, just once again, very briefly, I know, and I've said this a couple of times before, these last two items and the one that we're looking at now, there's normally not very much debate around the council chambers, but I can tell, rest assured, everyone, that the work that goes into reading these reports to make sure that everything is okay, and if it's not, we actually follow up with the senior staff when we sort of get the chance behind or outside the council meetings. Otherwise, you just cannot do it in the council meeting. Thanks.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? There being no one wishing to speak against, any further comments? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillors, we'll move on to item 9.6, Destination and Visitor Economy Conference. I'll have a mover and a seconder, please. Move councillor Betts, seconded councillor Cate. Councillor Betts, you wish to speak to that?
Very briefly, again, I'd like to totally support Councillor Tickle going. She's been going for a number of years and actually gets significant benefit that comes back to our council and the community. So that's total support of that recommendation.
Anybody wish to speak against that recommendation? Any further comments on that recommendation? Councillors, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those against, carried. Councillors, we move on to 9.7, Audit and Risk and Improvement Committee. Move councillor Cate, seconded councillor Tickle. Councillor Cate, you wish to speak to that?
Just to make some brief comments, thank you, Mr Mayor. At the meeting that was held in February this year, the committee received a report from the Chief Financial Officer from Council, and he spoke at length about a lot of things that are going on, possibility of special rate variations, Ray Walsh House, the technology system that we're actually looking at, and also valuation of land and buildings. They're all being updated apparently in the near future. He spoke also about the Tamworth Global Gateway Park and the difference between council-owned space being an asset and properties that we're actually selling there. So it was quite an interesting conversation that we had around that. We also had a presentation on enterprise risk management, and it actually provided us with an insight and background to the revised guidelines that on risk management and internal audits, which all councils are actually having to have in place by the 30th of June next year. He also provided some explanation on the council risk functions, and that we actually cover 3 different areas of risk and that includes risk management. We also do portfolio management, which covers insurances, and that is also from a finance and an asset perspective. So, and claims management. So I think when we think about audit and risk and that, we quite often forget that it's quite encompassing of a lot of parts of council activities. And he also gave us an update on the risk and safety team. There are some changes to try and address where we need to focus and to make sure that we're covering all those risk areas as well as we can. And in general, we just had some other reports presented. So it was a very good meeting, and I look forward to the next one.
Anyone wish to speak against the recommendation there? Further comments on the recommendation? Councillor Tickle.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's a very impressive and detailed report, and as Councillor Coates just outlined, it covers so many different facets of our operations. And one thing that actually jumped out to me in the financial reports, and I see that they've actually raised it and it's been adequately addressed, is outstanding staff leave. And the audit committee was given the assurance that that's under control. I know there have been a lot of difficulties because of COVID, but in accordance with the Local Government Act, there is a period of time in which staff leave should be used so that we don't have accrual of leave and then huge payouts that blow our budget out. So I thought that was quite interesting actually, that the detail that they go into with their audit and the operations of it. It's a very positive report, and I think we should be very proud of the council. That's how we're going.
Further comments, councillors? Councillor Southwell?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just following on from Councillor Tickle's comments there, is it possible to get a bit of an update from the General Manager in terms of how it is underway with the staff leave? Because I know that has been raised before, that the leave obviously accrues, and then if the staff leave, we have to do a payout. Are you able to provide just some comments on how that's progressing?
Through you, Mr Mayor. So council has a leave accruals policy which says that staff cannot accrue long service leave in excess of 13 weeks and annual leave in excess of 8 weeks. So the 13 weeks relates to 10 years of continuous service. That's what you're granted. And that you should then take every accrual before its next due date to keep it at that balance. Historically, the council didn't manage that very well. We had a very strong focus on it over the last 5 or 6 years to bring those balances down. And it's been quite successful. As Councillor Tickle pointed out, COVID bent it the other way because people didn't want to take leave when they had nowhere to go. So there's a renewed focus on it again now to have staff bring their leave balances back down to below that threshold. And we're doing that through flexible work as well, allowing people to take, not having to take blocks of leave if they don't want to, but maybe move to a 4-day a week for a period of time and taking a day worth of annual leave to gradually reduce those balances. So we have definitely seen an improvement over the years, but it's something you've got to be vigilant with because everybody's busy and everybody feels that they can't take leave. But as Councillor Tickle alluded to, the biggest thing is the inflationary or the compounding of people accruing leave and then getting a wage increase every year and that applying to the whole of the leave balance. So we're very mindful to keep an eye on that, and it's a strong focus for the finance team.
Further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillor, we'll move on to item 9.8. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved Councillor Betts, seconded Councillor Coates. Councillor Betts, you wish to speak to that? Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Further comments on that recommendation?
Just
Councillor Rodder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a question in relation to, so this is a previous report in relation to a number of properties, wasn't it? That,
Yeah.
So one of them included that little laneway, I believe, adjacent the CH Boutique Motel, which would be a concern, obviously, for some of the, whoever might get that, if it was one of those businesses, because then obviously they could impact the access potentially to the rear of those buildings. Would that be not better off actually just being transferred to council and almost like dedicated as some sort of lane or something like that?
I might ask the General Manager to...
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I would say that anybody that currently uses that access for their property access would have a right of carriageway over that land regardless of who owns it. It's really about it being attached to a property for rating purposes. So there's no requirement for anybody to do it. It may well be passed in and council may take it over. They would just dedicate it as a laneway access and that would be the end of the matter. But you can't purchase a piece of land and then deny somebody the right of access to a property if that is the only way to access their property.
There is actually case law on that. Thanks, Mr General Manager. Any further comments? Being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillors, we'll move on to item 10.1. I'll the mover and a seconder, please. Move Councillor Betts, seconded Councillor Mears. I'd like to speak to that, Councillor Betts. Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Further comment on that recommendation? There being no further comments on that recommendation, I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Councillors, before I call for a motion to move into closed council, I'll ask the General Manager if anybody requested that the items in closed be moved to open council.
No, Mr Mayor.
Therefore, I'll call for a motion to move into closed council. Move Councillor Burke, second to Councillor Southwell. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Councillors will move into closed council. And ask the those in the gallery to depart the room.
Mayor, councillors, this is the report from the closed session of the ordinary council meeting held on the 28th of February. In closed council tonight, you only considered one item, item 12.1, and you adopted the recommendation as per the business paper.
Could I ask for someone to move that we accept that? Councillor Southwell, second to Councillor Burke. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Councillors, at this point, at 7:15, we'll declare the meeting closed.
Mr Mayor, so we're open. Jackie, do you want to just quickly give the